In the previous video, we came across API requests and API response. So let's try to deep dive and understand it a little better. But before understanding,
Chrome acts as the client, requesting a web page. Apps use API requests for specific data. In both cases, the client asks and the server responds.
about API request and response, let's also first understand how a web browser works. Imagine you open Chrome and you type google.com. Now, in this scenario, the web browser acts as the client. When you enter, the browser creates an HTTP GET request and sends it to Google server. Think of the request as saying a message, "Hey Google, can you send me your home page?" The Google server receives the request, processes it, and sends back the web page. This is called the response. The flows look something like client is the browser. Yeah, so the flow looks like browser is the client that sends the request to the server, and server processes it, sends the response back to the client, and that's how websites load on your screen. Now let's move on to APIs. Now, instead of requesting an entire web page, what if an application only needs some specific data? Let's take Google Translate for an example. When you enter text and click Translate, the Google Translate app acts as the client. The app creates an API request and sends it to Google Translation Server. The request says, "Can you translate this text into English?" The Google Translation Server processes the request and sends only the translated text back. This is called an API response. The flow looks something like client, the Google Translate app, sends API request through the translation server, receives API response back at the client. So do you notice the difference between the browser request and the API request is that browser sends back an entire web page while the API only sends back the data that was requested, but the pattern remains exactly the same. Client asks, server response. Whether you are opening a website, checking the weather, ordering food, translating text, requests and response are happening constantly behind the scene, and that is the foundation of how the modern web works.